right, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to my photography masterclass. My name is Terry White, worldwide design and photography evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you once again on a Friday morning, my time, doing photography, doing editing for photography, doing all things photography, answering questions. And today's session is one that I can't believe it's been July since I last did this, because I was kind of hoping to do this once a month. But it is my how I would edit your images. So the way this works is I tweet and Facebook and LinkedIn out a link a few days before the stream. Like I think I did it Tuesday night. And I give people a link to submit their photos. In other words, I don't ask you any particular kind, format, or anything, just a photo that I can open up and what I would do to your photo. So typically these are photos that are straight out of the camera or certainly don't have very much editing. And even if you send me a raw file and I see that it's already got adjustments, I go ahead and clear those adjustments because I want to show you what I would do with your image out of the camera. So I've got a variety of images. I even have some left over from last time or two, because I've done this, it'll be the third time now. And so what I plan to try and do is try and catch up on some of those previous entries and maybe alternate. Do one previous entry from a time before and do one from this week. Do one from a time before and one this week. And that will certainly fill up our time, and I probably will run out of time and won't get to everything this time either. But I don't want to leave those entries that people submitted a while ago unedited just because I ran out of time and didn't get to those images. So with that said, I'm actually going to start with a previous image, one that I didn't do. This was, I think, from the very first time. If not, it was from the second time. Again, I don't remember. But that's how we're going to do it. Now, for those of you who are watching on all the various platforms I see you on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, so forth and so on, remember that it's great. You can hang out and watch on whatever platform you want, but I can only look at so many chat windows at a time, like one. So I'm going to invite you, if you want to comment, if you want to ask a question, if you want to be seen or heard, head over to b.net/Adobe Live, because that's where I'm actually going to be looking at the chat. So there's the URL up in the corner over there. b.net/Adobe Live, and that's the chat that I'll be looking at. And again, if you don't want to talk, if you don't want to ask any questions, you can just stay where you are. Also, if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. I love replay numbers as much as I love live numbers. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to switch over to my computer. Got all the housekeeping out of the way. And again, I have some images from the past. I have some images from this week. I have a variety of portraits, landscapes, flowers, cat photos. I got a cat photo in there. These are all images that people submitted. So, and I think one or two of these I did do something with before. So the ones that kind of look familiar, I'm not going to go into. But let's start with this one. This is a portrait from way back when that I don't think I ever got a chance to do anything with. And this is, again, a portrait. Someone wearing a sash. I can't tell what it says, but they're wearing a sash or standing outside. They took a portrait. Okay, so most of my editing always starts in Lightroom because that's where I bring my photos in, and they usually start with some Lightroom adjustments. Now, in this particular case, this image is a raw file. I can see by the .cr2, so shot with a Canon camera in raw format. And I'm going to go ahead and head over to the develop module and do the things I always do in the develop module. So you're going to say, he does those same things all the time. Yep, I do those same things all the time before I get into the particulars, because if A, I can get everything done in the develop module, perfect. I don't need to go any further. Or B, I'll start and get everything I can get done in the develop module or editing module in Lightroom Cloud, and then head over to Photoshop for the things that are easier to do in Photoshop. So with that said, one of the first things I would do, because I don't know this person's camera, is I would head over to my lens corrections, and I would, especially with people, but with all images, I would enable the profile correction. And it didn't really change the look of the lens distortion, But what it did, and I can tell, by the way, it even shows me what they shot this with now. They shot it with a Tamron lens, 24 to 70. And if there was any kind of bowing in the image, because the image lenses are round, it would have taken care of that. Now, it did take care of some of the vignetting, so it did make the image a little lighter. Perfect, that's great, saves me that extra step. Next up, so I would do that, just check that no matter what. Next up, I would just go ahead and get a starting profile going. Since this is a raw image, I would start using my raw profiles. If this were a JPEG, you wouldn't have these. So if you're looking and say, hey, I don't have portrait, landscape, or vivid because you're on a JPEG. If you're on a raw file, then you would have these. So I'm going to choose portrait. Again, not a big difference, barely noticeable, but I'm just kind of setting that foundation to get going. Now, next up, Jan says, Terry showed me how to change the order of my develop panels last week, and that blew my mind. Great. I'm glad you love that tip. I love having them in the order I love them in too. So mine are actually in a custom order now. Anyway, and if you guys missed that, you can go back and watch last week's replay. So I'm going to go ahead next and do the thing I always do. I always like to have Adobe Sensei or machine learning give it a shot. Let me see what it's going to look like. But before I do that, I might want to alter the white balance because it's on auto, or as shot. I don't know what they had it set to. It looks like an outdoor scene. I don't know if it was cloudy. I don't know if it was sunny. Doesn't look too sunny, but I'm going to go ahead and try daylight. And I'm not really crazy about daylight. Let me try cloudy. Cloudy's a little too warm for my taste, so I'm just going to back off the temperature just a bit and kind of get that as my base foundation for the white balance. Now, last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and hit auto. And again, look at the big difference auto makes. So auto basically says, I'm going to adjust a bunch of things based on what I think they should be to get you started. You may not agree with me, and that's okay. I usually don't agree with every single thing it did. So it's a starting point. It gets me most of the way there. If I don't agree, then I can go and adjust any slider I don't agree with. So for example, people, I typically do not adjust saturation for. So that's giving it a +3. And even though it's probably a subtle difference, I'm going to go ahead and just double click and set that back to 0 because I just don't do saturation on people. Vibrance, on the other hand, is okay on people because it doesn't usually adversely affect the skin tones. So vibrance I'm okay with. Now I'm going to zoom in because I can't really tell what's going on with this photo. So let me zoom in. And again, if I double click to turn off the vibrance, again, it didn't really do anything to the face. But if I go back to that, if I undo that, put it back to +20, I can see that it does start to bring out the colors and the sash and the outfit. And maybe even the lipstick. So yeah, that's a positive thing. I don't mind a little saturation. Now, everything else I'm kind of okay with. I'm okay with the brightening up the exposure. I'm okay with the increased contrast. I might bring down the highlight. No, actually, I kind of like the highlights where they were. I might actually increase them a little bit. And shadows, yep, the shadows were on point. And the whites, yeah. In this case, auto did pretty much everything I would want. There's not a whole lot. Now, I have texture, clarity, and dehaze, which auto does not usually affect. And, outside scenes can usually benefit from a little dehaze. Not too much because you can start to see it starts to destroy the photo. So like any slider, when you go too far and you don't like it, or if you raise your arm too high and it hurts, pull your arm back down. And so let's just add a slight amount of dehaze without going crazy. All right, so now I've done kind of the things in Lightroom that I would want to do for the most part right off the bat. Now I start to look around the photo because again, she's our main subject. So is anything taking my attention away from the main subject? Yes, it is. So this kind of like the end of the cement here where it's kind of like maybe just mulch or gravel or whatever that is and grass. And then you have some little paint stains here on the thing. And you have what looks like it could be a window, but not enough of it to matter. So those are things that start to bug me. Now, I could simply crop off those things. And you might be tempted to do that. So if I hit the letter R to go to my crop, and I just simply say, oh, I know I can get, oh, wait, hang on, let's unlock it. There we go. unlock, and I say, oh, okay, I can get rid of that cement problem and I can get rid of that window problem. And yes, you do, but you end up with an image that unfortunately might be too skinny, meaning you pulled out too many things to make it useful for posting. Like on posting on social, that would be fine, but printing, that would be a weird aspect ratio that you really wouldn't be able to print effectively without her head or feet being cropped off. So in this case, cropping, while it would get rid of those distractions, most of them, is just not going to do it. So this is a case where time to go to Photoshop, because it's one of those things where it's just going to be easier to try and get rid of these distractions in Photoshop than it would be any other way. So with that said, I'm going to hit Command E, PC, Control E, which is the keyboard shortcut to edit a copy of this in Photoshop. Now I said a copy on purpose because it didn't ask me a question, it just did it because I was starting with a raw file. Had it been a JPEG, a TIFF, or anything else, it would have asked me, do you want to make a copy? And I would have said yes. But I don't have to. So usually people will say, hey, don't you want to start with duplicating the background? I typically don't, because I already have a copy. The copy's in Lightroom. But for the sake of before and afters today, I will go ahead and duplicate the background. All right, so now we have our background image to play with and mess with. And one of the first things, this window is, because it's not enough of the window to make a difference. So, oh, and hang on, I was pulling it down instead of, there we go. I'm going to use my patch tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and make a selection around that piece of window, that window edge, and just go ahead and pull it straight down and just replace that. So now I didn't have to crop off part of my image and lose part of my image. I just simply removed that one thing that was distracting. Now, of course, we have some things down here in the bottom of the image. Again, this looks like just paint that happened when this wall was painted. The painter did not put down a tarp or just spill some paint. So let's just go ahead and get rid of these. Same patch tool, just patching those things out, because anything that takes my eye away from the subject is considered a distraction in my opinion. Oh, that was a bad one. Let's do that again. Something like that, okay. And you know, you could go crazy and start getting rid of every little thing, but these little things don't distract me. It's just those big white paint stains that were kind of bugging me. But you can clean this up as much as you want. Now we get to the bigger problem over here. This is all just like, we don't need to see this. This is all just not helping the scene at all. And so what I would do is I would start maybe up here, make a selection. Oh, I want to make it crooked though. Make a selection around this whole area. All of this. And I can, if I have enough space, which I think I do, if I have enough space, I can try a patch. If I didn't, I could try a clone stamp. If I didn't, I could try content aware fill. I could try any one of those things to get it to fill in that area. So let's try patch first, since I'm already on the patch tool. I think I have enough space to do that. And let's try it. Not too bad. All right, so that was a patch. That was it. So I can now patch in the parts that did not come out so well, or look repeated, or don't look lined up, or whatever that would be, to kind of not make it look like I did what I just did. All right. So now I was able to save this without cropping. And you know, you spend more time cleaning up the edge all you want, but that was it. All right. Now, all I'd have to do is, and by the way, this is so for those that like to see the before and after, that's the before, distractions, that's the after. Now, of course, while I'm here in Photoshop, I could just go in and just do a quick glance to make sure there's nothing else on the image. Like there's some stray hairs, but this is zoomed out enough where it doesn't bother me. Her eyes are a little dark, meaning from the standpoint that there was no light on her eyes, no light reflected into her eyes, no light basically in her eyes at all. So I might spend a few minutes trying to brighten her eyes, but before I just want to take a quick glance to make sure I'm not missing anything else first. Everything else is okay. I don't see anything else that's a problem. Oh, there's a line here just on the wall again. Not, wouldn't have noticed it unless I zoomed in, but while we're here, we might as well fix it. All right, and shoes and everything else look good. Okay, and again, same thing down here. Since I see it, might as well get rid of it. All right, so now we got that. And so now just let me work on her eyes. Now I could have done this part in Lightroom had I zoomed in. I just didn't see it in time. So let's go ahead and fix it now. Filter, I could convert for smart filters to make it non-destructive. So let's do that, make it a smart object. And it'll take a second to do that. It did it. Now let's go into filter, camera raw filter. And like I said, I could just save it, go back to Lightroom and do this, or do it here. Either process is going to be the same. But let's go ahead and zoom in. And now let's use that adjustment brush. The adjustment brush, and let's set it to positive exposure. And we're just going to go ahead and lightly just brush her eye a bit. And brush over here a bit. And then now that we brushed and we only turned it up, we can turn it way up and see what you're doing, see what you brushed. Or just down, just to add a little bit more brightness in her eyes. Now, to be honest, her pupils are still too, again, because there was no light on her eyes, her pupils are still too dark from that standpoint. I can see a little bit of a catch light over there, but let's go ahead and click OK. Just so you know, you can do this trick if you really want to. We can add just an empty layer. We can use a shape tool. We could use an ellipse. We can use anything we want. So let's try an ellipse. I'm just going to hold down my Option or Alt key, do it out from the center, hold down the Shift key to get a perfect circle, and maybe about that big. And then we'll just go ahead and fill that with white. So default color, let's go to white, and just Option or Alt delete to fill that with white. Okay, obviously too bright of a catch light, but luckily for that layer, and by the way, we can, I could have duplicated it before I did it, but let's, I'm just trying to think how I want to do this. I'll just simply duplicate the layer. Duplicate the layer, move it over to the other eye, put it in position, and then we can merge these two layers together so that they're all in one. Merge layers. Okay, so now we have our catch light layer, and then we just simply lower the opacity way, way down. So we just give her a little bit of something in her eye to make her eye just not a solid black dot. And again, so, it's not, you zoomed out that far, you're really not going to notice it, but look, when you kind of zoom in, you start to see it, and you can vary the opacity to taste. That is up to you, but you get the idea. Jason Levine's in the house, and Jason's going to be doing I think I saw Jason and I saw Howard earlier in the chat. They were going to be doing their master classes today as well. All right, so now I could save this, keep all the layers, delete the layers, totally up to you. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And again, the catch lights make all the difference, just even if they're fake. And you can make them in whatever shape of softbox you did not have. You can do whatever you want. But anyway, we're saving this out now. It's taking a few seconds with all the layers, but it's saved out. We'll close it. We'll head back to Lightroom, and there we go. Where did she go? Oh, there she is. Okay. It's putting it at the very top, and there it is. All right, so here's our before, and here's our after. So just getting rid of those distractions and making that portrait really stand out. And now you could even get into maybe moving her a little more to the right to get that chromatic aberration near the top of her head. It doesn't look like it to me. I could be off. Yeah, a little bit. You're right. So let's go ahead and take care of that too. So what he's referring to, and I probably would have done this right on the raw file, is whenever you have this like green or a bright color halo around the subject, again, that's usually a lens thing. So we head back to develop, and we go back to where I was with the lens corrections. There's a checkbox for enable chromatic aberration, and it just took it right off. So it's literally a checkbox. I just didn't notice it, but it got rid of that little green glow. Thanks for calling that out. Whoever called that out, that was Eileen. Thanks for calling that out, Eileen. All right, so let me see if I can do that on the Photoshop file as well. Let's go ahead and remove chromatic aberration. Let's see if it takes care of it here. And it did. Okay, so good catch. All right, that's it. We're going to move off this one because, again, we can spend all day on one photo, but let's move off. That was one from before. Now we're going to do one from this week. Okay. Excuse me. Since we did a portrait, let's go ahead and move on to kind of just like an outdoor scene. But excuse me again. Okay. Since I have an outdoor, or I have a lot of outdoor scenes to mess with here. Eileen, since you commented, we're going to go ahead and work on yours. Let's go ahead and go to this one. Now, Eileen gave me fair warning when she submitted this that it needed cropping. I would totally agree, because you just got all this stuff in the background that's really not your subject. Your subject is obviously the bird. Now, so first thing I would do is start with a crop. Let's go ahead and go to our crop tool. And again, how would I crop this? For some reason, this is screaming at me that it wants to be a portrait. And the reason I say that is because you have the foreground, you have the subject, and you have the background. If I try and crop it down to get rid of all this stuff and in, then I'm going to lose some of that background. And I think that background kind of tells part of the story. So I'm going to do something probably not conventional. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe I'll hit the letter X to switch my crop to X as in X-ray, to switch my crop to a vertical. And let's just change our composition up a little bit, and then still bring it down, maybe something like that. And that way I get to keep all three elements. I get to keep the reflection in the water, I get to keep the bird, obviously, and some of that background. Not that that background's super, cool and unique, but I think it just helps with this particular image. Maybe not as much of it. All right, so now we'll start there. All right, now that I got that out of the way, we kind of do the same thing. Enable lens correction, just for safety, enable chromatic aberration, because it doesn't hurt if it's not there, it just doesn't do anything. And then we'll apply maybe Adobe Landscape to this raw file, and it kind of it made the water just a little bluer, which is great. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just hit auto. And Eileen's, or who's that? Eileen's saying, horizontal in my humble opinion. Eileen, this is how I would edit your photo. If you want to make it horizontal, it's your photo. You can. So anyway, next up. So let's go in and, all right. So actually the white balance looks pretty good. I'm not going to mess with the white balance. And now, since this is not a person, I can go in and have a little more fun with things like saturation. And I'm going to go in and everything that, I mean, the vibrance and like, I don't want to overdo it. Like, they look pretty good the way they are with auto. So the only thing I might do is go into, let me go back to basic. My thing I might do is go into maybe a slight amount of dehaze, not a ton. Everything else came out okay. And then again, now it's a matter of distractions. So there's a pole sticking out of the water there that I might, well, not might, I definitely would want to get rid of. There's some stuff down here that maybe it's the reflection of something that we've not seen that's really not helping it at all. And just getting rid of some of the distractions. So with that, let's again head over to Photoshop. It will make a copy. And I'm just going to use my spot healing brush and just go ahead and paint that one out. Oh, that did not do a good job. Let's do it again. And again. And one more time. And I think I got most of it there. Same thing here. All right. And just some of the stuff that, again, I don't think is really helping the story. There we go. Okay. All right. Now let me zoom in and see what we really got here. Now, I could certainly see a horizontal version cropped like this to support your point, where we really zoom in and we really see the subject. That I would agree with. And I might go back and change that now that I'm seeing it. up close and personal. Now again, all of this stuff was there the day she photographed this, so it's not like it doesn't belong there. This is all naturally occurring, I want to say naturally occurring things. I could be wrong. Hopefully it's not litter. But some of these are not helping. So I would just reduce them. Start removing some of the ones that really don't need to be there. So I'm just brushing them out with my healing brush. All right. Now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do so you have both versions when we're done. All right, let's go down. And again, like that reflection is really not helping me. Like I actually, and now that I'm zoomed in, I kind of like it just like this. Like that's not really helping or adding much now that I'm zoomed in. And the top's really not helping it at all, especially now that I see that stuff up there. So zooming in makes a big difference. All right, so let's say that's all I wanted to do to it. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now I'm going to give you your choice. Because maybe the client would, the client's obviously indicated that she wants it horizontal, but maybe you have, you want to see it both ways. So again, this is our original. This is our edited version. And now what I would do in Lightroom is I would make a virtual copy. And with my virtual copy, I just hit Command quote for the virtual copy, which is under the photo menu, create virtual copy. Now that I got my virtual copy, I can have that version cropped a different way. So let's go back, hit the letter X again to crop horizontally. And maybe something like that. And maybe even more. Yeah, so that way you get this version, which I'm not happy with now that I've seen this version. So Eileen, you were right. Oh, I might have cropped off a little too much on the right. On the left, I mean. There you go. We don't want to crop off the wings if we don't have to. All right. There we are. That's how I would edit your photo. And now that I'm seeing this version, this is the version I really want. So you are correct with your photo being horizontal is better. I had not zoomed in. All right, next up. That was from this week. Let's go to one from before. The before days. Let's go in and, all right, let's go to this one perhaps. This is one of those where it's a bridge or a dock in the water, and it's, it is what it is. So in this case, pier. So in this abandoned pier. All right, we got a name for it. Okay, let's go to our development menu. Same kinds of things. Now this was shot or given to me as a JPEG. So these lens profile corrections or whatever may not be there because the EXIF data may not be there. So in this case, it didn't really do anything. So let's go in and choose. I'm just going to go ahead and hit auto on this and see what happens. Auto certainly brightened it up, made it better. And personal thing with me, and this is, you'll see me do this in any shot with water, is I'm not a fan of green water. I know that's what it naturally looks like. I know that's what was there. I'm just not a fan of it. So I would change the color of the water because that's me. But this is what it's supposed to look like because that's the color of the water. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. So for me, I might go in to a local adjustment. Let's try it this way. And this way I'll get to play with one of the local hue adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and start just brushing. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and, all right, we'll leave it on exposure. I'm just going to start brushing. All right, so that's too light. I'm not going to leave it that way, don't worry. I'm just trying to see where I brushed and where I haven't brushed. All right. Now that I brushed it, I can go in to my, this is brand new in Lightroom. You have something called local hue. When you use a local adjustment, such as your adjustment brush, your gradient filter, linear filter, you have the ability to, radial filter, you have the ability to adjust the color of whatever it is you locally selected. So let's bring our exposure back down, first of all. And now that we brought our exposure, and we didn't even double click to set it. Now we brought our exposure down, we can actually adjust that local hue to kind of play around with the colors of what we have. So I would want maybe something just a little bluer like that, not purple, not red. And once you get it in the ballpark, you can check the use fine adjustment so it won't make drastic adjustments. So it's going to do it in a more fine way of doing it. In other words, it won't let you drag the slider nearly as far. It's not letting me drag it hardly at all. Yeah, it's dragging it, but not a bunch. Let me turn it off, just get it where I want it first. Maybe something more like that. Now, I could also just simply use my temperature and make the water bluer that way too. So you get a choice of both. I want to make it crazy blue, but I just don't want it to be crazy green either. Spending way more time on this. And I keep looking over here, but this is supposed to be green because it's a reflection of that tree. So that's not going to turn blue or shouldn't turn blue. I should really be looking at this side. Yeah, maybe something like that. Just so it's not so green all the way across. And again, keep in mind, it is reflecting green trees, and it's supposed to look like it did. But that way I was able to adjust it the way I personally creatively wanted to do it, as opposed to the way it would look naturally. Let me just make sure. I'm sorry, Bruno. Bruno said, "How did you do it so quick? What was the which thing that did I do quick?" Bianca's asking, "How do you submit photos?" I gave out a link on my social media earlier this week, so just be looking for that next time around. And yeah, the deadline has passed because we're now live. But next time around, follow me on social media, and you will get the link days in advance. Would RAW help create a better color result? Usually, because you have more dynamic range and more data to work with. All right. Okay, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any questions. All right. So now, some of the other things I might do, because this is not a person, I might go in and go back to get out of my adjustment brush and go back to my presence area, and I would really crank up things like texture to really, and here we'll zoom in so we can see it. So this was before I did texture, and now just kind of sharpening up those details, adding a little bit more clarity to those details as well. Oh, right about there. And just kind of bringing out some of that wood that's in there as well, as far as, and also the trees. And if I were to go back to the adjustment brush, I could also, here, let's go back. I want to show you one quick tip. If you go back to your adjustment brush and we show, oh, I want to add a new point. Undo. Trying to find my existing point. Somewhere there's a point to select. There it is. It was just really hard to see. Okay, there's my existing point. What I could do is I could turn down texture for the water. So to make the water like just a little bit more dreamy, a little bit more, turn turn down the texture and the clarity in the water to make the water just a little bit more still-like and foggy kind of, so it's just not crystal clear. So you can have a negative effect in just that area that I selected earlier. And there's my original selection point showing me what I did and didn't do. All right, so that's what I would do to this photo. It's not a ton. It is what it is. All right, so let's go back and get out of it. Next up, let's go to one of the submissions from this week. I'm going to go to this portrait here. And Sala, I like your portrait. You're looking cool and badass with your eye patch and your mask. What I'm not loving is TJ Maxx in the background. So the usual suspects we would do. So let's go to our develop. Let's hit our auto just to, again, give it an overall color tone. Made the sky a little bluer, the yellow of the car a little richer. Didn't negatively affect her. And again, making sure saturation's back on 0. It's a JPEG, so I'm not going to worry about color profiles or there are no raw profiles or lens correction. This looks like a selfie from a phone anyway. So now let's get rid of some of the things that are distracting me. So for example, if I go full screen on this, definitely got to get rid of the TJ Maxx and maybe even the tree, the merger of the tree growing out of her head because it's not helping the photo. It's therefore a distraction. So let's quickly go do those things. Let's head over to Photoshop, which now, because it is a JPEG, is going to ask me if I want to make a copy. Yes, I want to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments I've already done. So that will, even as a JPEG, will still make my copy. Now, I could just replace the whole building, but again, we just don't want to give any extra advertising to the company that has nothing to do with this shot. So I'm just going to go into my patch tool, make sure you get the shadow too. I missed part of it. So I just hold down my shift key to add. And since I don't really have a place to drag it left or right, I'm just going to go ahead and hit delete to bring up content aware fill. Click OK, and it will use just the surrounding pixels to do it. All right, so now we got rid of our branding. So let's head back over to the tree up here. You have a lot of nice sky. Now, in order so that I don't accidentally paint onto her beret or clone onto her beret, I'm going to actually take advantage of select subject. Let's see how this works. Select subject to select her. And it did. And it gave me that outline that I needed. It gave me that line of protection. But it's protecting her, and I needed to, it's protecting the sky. I needed to protect her. So I'm just going to go up to select and choose inverse, meaning select everything that's the opposite of what's currently selected. Now that it's done that, meaning the background selected, she's not. But that border is going to protect me from accidentally doing anything to her beret. So with that, I'm going to grab my clone stamp tool, hit the letter S, make my brush a little bigger, make sure I'm on my defaults of normal and blah, blah, blah. And then we'll just go ahead and sample part of the sky here, or even get a little closer, sample that part of the sky, and just start cloning that stuff away that I don't want sticking out from her head. Now, even though the sky is blue, it's not all the same shade of blue. So you have to be careful that it will look like you did it, because you'll see paint strokes that may be a little lighter or a little darker. And we're going to see how to fix that with the patch tool. All right, so once I get that all out of the way, and again, I can drag, look, I can go with the clone stamp into her beret, nothing happens because her beret is not selected, the background is. All right, so now that we did that, to just kind of blend it in, even though no one will really notice that, to blend it in, oh, undo. I forgot I still got that selected. Deselect, Command D, and now with the patch tool on normal, just where I can see a line, and if I zoom in, you'll be able to see it too, where I can see those lines of where I paint it. I'm just going to drag and patch those borders away so that they all blend in. So this way, I don't end up with a noticeable paint stroke where the sky was not exactly the same shade of blue. All right, here we go. Good, good, good. Okay. There we are. So Sala, that's what I would do to your photo. Everything else looks cool. Just getting rid of that, hey, she's at TJ Maxx. And hey, there's a tree sticking out of her head. And the rest is kind of okay. She's got, let's see, just make sure while I'm here, there's nothing else that, yeah, makeup's on point. And she's got a tattoo, necklace. There's nothing else I would do there. Cool. All right. Save that. And close it. And head back to Lightroom where it will put it together with the original. So this was our original. And here's our new one. So just getting rid of those couple of things that are taken away from the photo. Now, again, you could select everything in the background and replace the entire background. That's, that's obviously an option too. So because select subject, she's nice and easy to cut out. Select subject selected her just fine, and you could replace that background with just blue. You replace that background with just the yellow from the car. You can do whatever you wanted, but we'll leave the car there. All right, next up. That was from this week. I have another one from this week that I don't want to run out of time for because I think it's kind of a cool one to work on. So let's go ahead and go to it. It's this. It's a motocross shot, and I don't usually do sports photography, but I kind of like this because it's got so much potential. All right, so first and foremost, it's too dark. Like you can't really tell what's going on. It's kind of flat looking. So we'd fix those things, but the elephant in the room in this case is the fence. Everything else is awesome except the fence, because the fence just makes it look caged in. It makes it look like they're not supposed to be there. And if that's the look you want, great. But it's how I would edit your photo. All right, so let's go in. And first of all, let's fix the obvious. It's a JPEG, so I'm limited on everything I can do. But let's just go ahead and hit auto. See, and auto just brightened it up quite a bit already. And let's go ahead and maybe bring those shadows up a bit more. We could really bring the shadows up with an adjustment brush just where we want it. I'll bring them up to about there. Go to our adjustment brush and go to shadows as a preset. Yep, shadows as a preset means it turns everything else off. So that way I'm brushing, and here we zoom in, and we move it down. That way I'm brushing with just a brighter shadow brush. There we go. Let's just brighten up certain parts of this so that, our rider kind of stands out. All right. So now that we've done that, oops, let's go back and, didn't mean to brighten all that. Let's get out of our adjustment brush and let's go back up. Okay. So now, how do we get rid of the fence? Obviously, we don't do that in Lightroom. So everyone that always says, hey, I can do everything in Lightroom. No, you can't. You can do it maybe everything you want to do in Lightroom, but Lightroom just can't do certain things, like get rid of a fence. So that's when we head to Photoshop. So we head over. It's going to make a copy. Great. And yes, Sean, I'm dying to use sky replacement, but I'm not ready to show it to you guys just yet. Stay tuned. I'll keep this image as a reference point when we do start talking about sky replacement. Anyway, let's tackle the fence. So how do we get rid of this fence? Now, we could clone it out. We could content aware it out. We could painstakingly patch it out. There's lots of ways to do it. I'm going to try a way that I think might work. I'm going to, first of all, make a selection of the part that's easy to select, the mountains, the hill that he's on. So I'm just going to go to my quick selection tool and make my brush a lot bigger. There we go. And I'm just going to start selecting the bottom because it's easy. All right, so now I got that selected. Come over here and get this selected. And just make sure we get that edge and nothing else. Like it selected the fence, or that post, which I don't want. So hold down the Option key and deselect those parts. All right, so I'm just making my way around. I got the hill, got part of the tree there. Don't want that. Don't want that. So whenever I'm subtracting from any selection, I'm holding down my Option key to do that. All right, so now I got a good selection of the hill now. Same thing we did before. We're going to inverse it. So select inverse, which now means select everything but the hill. Means select our rider, select the sky, select the fence. We basically just flip the selection upward. Now that I've done that, I'm going to take my lasso, letter L, lasso, and I'm going to subtract the parts that I don't want selected. I don't want the sky selected right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do a rough selection around him. And I'm doing this with a mouse. I should be doing this with my pen in my other hand. Anyway, let's go ahead and do that. And I just took that out. All right, let me do it the right way now. Since I'm holding a Wacom pen in my other hand. All right, let's zoom in. And now, same thing, Shift or our Option key to subtract. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract. Actually, you know what? I'm going to subtract him out too, because I really don't want him selected right now. So just kind of a rough selection around him. All right, so now we got kind of the fence selected. Hold down the Shift key, get a little bit more fence here. Shift key, get a little bit more fence here. And I know that's not perfect, but I'm just trying to get everything not selected except the fence. And I don't want this tree selected either. Oh, wrong key. Undo. Option key to subtract. Okay. Now, why did I go through all that painstaking selecting just to get the fence and I could have just outlined it? Well, I got a nice hard edge around the hill, which is what I really wanted. Now that I've done that, I'm going to use the new Content Aware Fill workspace to get rid of the majority of that fence. So to do that, I'm going to go up to my Edit menu, come down to Content Aware Fill, which is a workspace. That will bring up the workspace and it'll give me a preview of what it's going to do so far. Now it's got rid of the fence, but it did it by bringing in parts of the image I don't want. So I'm going to set my brush here. There we go. I'm going to set my brush, to the excluded area. So green means the excluded areas. So don't here, hold on my Shift key. Option key, sorry. Don't include the mountain. So I'm just telling it, don't include the mountain and don't include him. I'm basically making the mountain or the hill, whatever you want to call it, off limits. So in other words, just use the sky. And I could have done this just by filling it with the sky color or filling it with or cloning it in. Anyway, but I just want to try this workspace out. All right, so now that I've done that, I get the tree. There we go. I was like, whoa, I missed a spot. Let's not use the tree either. Get a bunch of trees copied over there. There we go. So now it's starting to do what I want. It's basically eliminating everything except him and the tree. The tree at the top, I don't mind. Now you might say, well, Terry, you're getting rid of these trees too. And like those trees don't tell the story. They don't mean anything to me. They're little shrubs that would be hard as hell to get rid of the fence in the midst of them. If you needed them, you could do it, but I don't need them. All right, let's get rid of that one little piece. All right, so now there's some blending issues here, but for the most part, it did what I wanted. So the next thing, I'm waiting for this last preview to finish. Next thing I would do is I would start, before I click OK, I would start playing with the color adaptation. Right now it's on default. I always try each one to see which one I like better. So I tried none. None's actually a little better. I would try high. High's worse. And I would try very high, which is probably going to be worse. Yep, as I expected. So let's go back to none. None seemed to be the best one. So now I can output this either as a merge layer or a new layer. So we can output it as a new layer. So when I output it as a new layer, that gives me that as a new layer. I can deselect now, and now I can go in and start playing with the parts that don't look right, like this gray matter behind him. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a merged duplicate of the two. Oops, wrong key. Hang on. Command Option Shift E. PC Control Alt Shift E will take the layers you select and make a new merge layer from them. So I still have the ability to get back to the individual layers, but now I have the merge layer on top. So now I'm just going to go ahead, as my usual blending mode or blending tool is the patch tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and patch in these hard lines to get rid of them. Kind of just blend them in. And you can, of course, go in and make them lighter and make them not as dark, but as long as they're blended in and I don't see a hard line, I don't care if they're dark gray, because part of the sky is dark gray. All right, so now we've done the easy part. Now there's the hard part, this stuff. So in here, like I kind of screwed up with the selection there, but keep in mind, I still have the original. So I have the original layer to always come back and get that back from. But what I would start to do now is, well, let's go ahead and get it back now. Let's go ahead and use our clone stamp tool, or we use a mask. Yeah, we can use a mask. So let's mask this layer. And let's just use our black paint and use a brush. And we just bring that back in. All right, because that does need to be there. All right, so now that we got that back in, now, oh, and we want to not have that there. We want to see the front of the bike. The parts that need to be there need to be there. All right, and now that we've done that, we can go in and start to fill in the rest. Now I'm not going to have time. I only got like a few minutes left anyway. I'm not going to have time to go through this in detail, but just to show you what I would do over time is I would start to now clone stamp in closer to my subject. So in this case, I might try a select subject and see what happens. See if it selects him. Or object selection tool. So yeah, select subject didn't quite do it. So let me go ahead and undo that or deselect and go to my object selection tool and select him. And it's not quite giving me everything, but it is masking the back part, which I need. Okay, so now the back part's been masked. I can go to my clone stamp tool, grab a nice big brush, and come out here maybe. Oh, he's selected. Inverse the selection first. There we go. And now I don't have to worry about cloning over anything else. So I'd do the same thing. I'd get the front clone. I'd get, you know, him selected so that basically I can inverse that selection and get rid of all the other things that I don't need. So same thing on the, let's use our object selection tool, or I'm sorry, quick selection tool. And maybe I go in here and select maybe this wheel, the outer part of it at least. And same thing. So now select inverse, means select everything but that. And now clone stamp, smaller brush, come out here and sample. And that's from the other mask, so that's why it's not coming through. But I would have to take that mask away and get to that part. Okay, same thing in between, you know, just basically you would just take your time selecting the pieces that you want to protect. Like here, I would deselect first. There we go. Here I'd select this and that. And now the part in between his legs will not be protected when I inverse it. And then same thing, hold down my Option or Alt key with my clone stamp tool, sample that, and then you're just basically working to get rid of the fence. So you would take your time and get rid of the fence everywhere you need to get rid of it. And then ultimately I would probably just go ahead and replace that sky anyway, but you get the idea, taking the time, you've got it, and you'd get it done. All right. So you need to get the fence out of the spokes too. So you same thing, select the wheels, get rid of this fence out of the fence out of the spokes, and taking your time in doing that. All right, we will keep the images that I did not get to for the next one. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. And again, we have fun doing these. Hang on one second. And a menu option over there. We have fun doing these how I would edit your photos. And these are how I would edit your photos. So we got through a few today. We will get through more next time. And thanks for the submissions. I will keep the ones I didn't get to. We will use them next time. And we will continue to work until we get through as many as we can. All right, cheers everybody. Thanks for watching. We will catch you on the next one. I'm out of time. Next up is the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Bye everybody.